Hi, I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach all over the world about parenting, good communication, and self-government. This is part 3 of a 4-part series on time management for adults called What Nobody Tells You About Time. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you a few stories of some people who have had a time shift in their lives, and then we're going to talk about what nobody tells you about time. My friend Jessie is so busy. She always has so many things going on, and I will tell you what, that girl, she can accomplish more than anybody else I know. It seems to be just in her blood that she can just go from thing to thing to thing. She never seems to get stressed out or worn out. She seems to be energized by time. How can that be? I wondered years ago. It seems like nothing is ever slowing her down. What I recognized, though, as I took a closer look at Jessie's life, was that Jessie does not do everything. She only does what's most important to her. All of the other things she is totally fine missing out on. The thing is all the things that are the most important to her are the things that are so impressive to everybody else. So, from looking on the outside, you would think surely Jessie is cooking the most amazing dinners, and she is doing work with her children, she's cleaning her house all of the time, plus she's running businesses and community things, she's going out to lunch with friends, going to cool outings with her children and trips and all this stuff, right? Well, actually, there's a lot of things Jessie doesn't do, right? Like laundry and cooking and stuff like that. Jessie decided that there were certain things in her life that were important to her. And if her husband would do the cooking, that would be great for her. Now, I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with that as a priority set, but I do recognize that for Jessie, it works. She's happy, she's not stressed, she's decided when other people can do things and when she can do things. Now, her priorities and my priorities are different. So my priorities are things like I want to work in the garden with my family. That is a top priority. Now, I'm not saying Jessie never works in the garden with her family. She does, but it's probably something that her husband will more likely do, where she's going to take on a different learning experience with the children. So she's going to pick what works for her. I like to do a lot of the hands-on stuff with my children. I like to make meals for my family. I like to do laundry, all of those things. But I also like to do all of the other things like write books and do podcasts and go out to lunch with my friends. But I can't do them all the time. So where Jessie might sacrifice on something like laundry or a dinner prep, I might sacrifice on going out to lunch with a friend so that I can do more stuff with the children. Priorities are a really key piece of recognizing how to budget your time well. So you've got to make sure that you take the time to determine what your priorities really are. And the best way to do that is to list how you spend your day. What are all the things you do in your day throughout a week? Then put them into categories. Some of them are, taking care of the family or taking care of extended family, or some might be friends, some might be TV, phone time, nothing time, exercise time. Put them all in categories and then prioritize them. Which one is most important? For me, it's always going to be family, my children, and then stuff related with my church. Then after that, personal development. Then after that would come extended family, and then comes friends, and then all of the time wasters and other things like TV and those kinds of things. So if you know your priorities and you know what order they fall into as far as in relation to each other, then you can see how your time really matches up. Are you putting the majority of your time where your highest priority is? or not. And if for some reason you have to be pulled away for multiple hours a day because you have to make money, it may not be your top priority, but it is still one of the priorities, then you might find yourself saying something like, okay, but when I'm there with the children, I'm going to be all the way in, right? No excuses, no dumping my bad day on them. I am going to be completely invested in them when I'm there. So this helps you determine what you're going to say no to and what you'll say yes to. So I have some other stories that I'd like to tell you and some things that you might not know about time. But before we get to that, click the subscribe button. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, well, then this is the third part of a 4-part series. So I know that if you've watched the whole series, I've now told you 3 times to subscribe. That doesn't mean you have to. You have your freedom, but I'll tell you what, it sure does help the channel, and it will help you also see when new videos come out that you might be interested in that could help your family learn more self-government. So click subscribe now. A few years back, I was speaking at a conference, and there was a woman whose name was Adrienne, and she raised her hand and she said, Nicholeen, you're talking about all of this stuff related to parenting, correcting the children and, teaching them all these skills and working with the children and all of this stuff to create a really good family culture, but Nicholeen, I have 9 children. I cannot correct everything that they do all the time. I would be talking the entire day. It would just take too much time. So I looked at Adrienne and I said, Adrienne, how long does it take you to do a correction? And she's like, well, the way you're talking about, it could take 5 minutes to do a correction. And so I said, yeah, it could take 5 minutes. Adrienne, do you know that you have 24 full hours in a day? And each one of those 24 hours has 12 5-minute segments? That is a lot of time. I said, if there is one thing that I've recognized that nobody ever tells you about time, it's that you have a lot of it. Everyone always tells you you don't have enough. In fact, that's what everybody complains about every day, everywhere you go, that they don't have enough time. But you have 24 hours. It's just how you decide to use it. Adrienne sat there pretty somber. She looked at me. I kind of say things how they are, And she came up to me afterward and she said, I didn't really think of that. That really, I do have a lot of time. I just have a lot of things I want to get done, but I also have a lot of people. Nicholeen, sometimes I've got 3 people that I need to make corrections to all at once. And I looked at her and I said, you can only talk to one person at a time. You can only correct one child at a time. The other ones are going to have to take a finger. They're going to have to hold on to your hand and wait until it's their turn to talk to you. And that's okay. They can wait. People can wait. This is something else nobody tells you about time. Things can wait. So I saw Adrienne the next year. She came up to me and she said, Nicholeen, you might not remember, but I had a little bit of an issue with time and how much time this would take. And I want you to know something. I went home and told myself I had 24 hours a day and I could only talk to one person at a time. And then everything changed for me. I gave myself more time to talk with the children. And she said, and you know what? I put in the time to do this program, to talk with people about their issues, to teach them the skills that they would need for self-government, because that's what my program's called, Teaching Self-Government. And she said, and at first it took more time because I had to teach them all the skills and how we would correct problems and stuff and how to be calm and all those kinds of things. She said, but now I am saving so much time. I have tons of time. We just sit and read. In fact, we used to spend all of our days talking about bad behaviors because with 9 children. She said, but now we're talking about books. We're talking about stories. We're laughing about things. We actually have time to enjoy life now because we took the time up front to handle the problems. So that's another thing that people don't tell you. That if you take the time to problem solve ahead of time, it saves you time later. So if you teach your children how to follow instructions, accept no answers, accept criticism and consequences, disagree appropriately, and how you're going to correct them, if you teach them how to have a family meeting and discuss problems, if you teach them proper hygiene, what to do after dinner and before dinner, how to handle bedtime, if you pre-teach all these things that you think you don't have time for, then later you have way more time. At first, it feels bumpy, it's hard, it's lots of work, but then soon it's just like smooth sailing, and you finally get the life and the interactions that you wanted. And that's what Adrienne showed me. I mean, I knew, but she saw it for herself. And then she came and she told me. So I used to teach water aerobics years ago, and when I did, one day it was early in the morning, I was coming, it was 6 a.m., and I said, oh, I hardly had any sleep last night. And this one woman who was in her 70s, she said, well, why didn't you have sleep? And I said, well, because I was canning beans and I had to get them done. You know, they needed to get finished, and I didn't want to have another day of canning beans. And this woman, this elderly woman, looked at me and she said, Nicholeen, if there is something that I have learned over my years, there is nothing that cannot wait till tomorrow. I was like, wait a second, that sort of sounds like you're endorsing procrastination, you know? But then I realized she's right. I don't have to attach stress to time. I don't have to attach stress to a project. If I work on the project for the allotted amount of time that I have to work on it, and then I don't get it done in that time, then I move it. I move the project to another time. I assign it a new time. And if I have to be accountable to somebody else and they say, how'd you do on your project? Or tell me how it went on the project. And I say, listen, I put in this much time on it, which was all the allotted time, but it did not get done. Then that's okay, because that's still me giving a report of a good use of time. So many people feel like they have to be perfect in order to be good at time management. But let me tell you something. People who are good at time management are not the type of people who get everything done first all the time. They are the people that get everything that's needful done and put in a certain period of time. All right, if you've loved this video, then you've got to go to part 4, because part 4 in the Time Management for Adults series is all about creating more time. Finally, we're there. How do we create more time for ourselves when we have 24 hours already in a day? Well, there are key things that you can do that make it feel like you're creating more time, and we're going to talk about it in the next part, so join me there.